Look at this man, he's already walking away. He turned his back, took 3 steps, and the whole thing, all of it could have been over right there. But he stops, and he turns around, closes the distance back toward that kid. Preston Brewer doesn't know it yet, but those 3 steps he just retraced are going to be the most important 3 steps of his entire life. What he's about to tell police is self-defense. What the camera already recorded is something else entirely. The footage doesn't forget, and neither will a jury.
I stood my ground. I feared for my life.
This is Lloyd Preston Brewer. He's 57 years old. He owns the building behind him. He's got a loaded gun on his hip. And about 90 seconds from now, he's going to use it to kill a 21-year-old kid who was peeing on his wall. The detective who sits across from Preston Brewer in that room knows him. That's Key West, you know everybody. Brewer knows it too. He leans into it almost immediately, referencing their history, the bar, the activity out back, the fact that Brewer has always been armed. He is calm, methodical. He is, from the very first sentence, building a story. Before anything else, the detective walks him through his rights.
All right, Preston. Before we start anything, because formality, I'm going to read you your rights, okay? You get your water?
I got my water.
I'm going to read your rights and go through this. I'll have you sign it just saying that I read them to you. And
Read the rights?
Yeah. And then,
I'll just sign it. I know what it says.
and then if you want to, I'll have to read them. It's a formality. And then you want to give us your story. I'm here to listen. Before we ask you any questions, you must understand your rights. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can be used against in court. You have the right to talk to a lawyer for advice before we ask you any questions and to have him present with you during questioning. If you cannot afford a lawyer, one will be appointed for you before any questioning if you wish. If you decide to answer questions now without a lawyer present, you will have the right to stop answering at any time. You also have the right to stop answering at any time until you talk to a lawyer. You understand those rights? Okay. Do me a favor, just read this here.
Brewer signs the waiver, then he reads it aloud.
Do you have your glasses? Okay.
Cheers.
Yep, there you go. Just read this here for me. The waiver of rights. If you could read it out loud for me.
I have read this statement of my rights, and I understand that my rights are, or what my rights are. I am willing to make a statement and answer questions. I do not want a lawyer at this time. I understand and I know what I'm doing. I promise. No promises or threats have been made to me, and no pressure or coercion of any kind has been used against me.
Okay.
That's good.
I know what I'm doing, he says it himself. Remember that line. The detective asks him to start from the beginning, from the night at the bar.
It's simple.
Okay. And if I could borrow your cheaters? Because I can't see. All right. All right. Pretty much, tell me what happened. And start, if you can, just start I guess the night that you were at Conch Town that night?
Correct.
Okay. So go ahead and let me know. Tell me what you got.
I was there for the Super Bowl.
Okay.
I was with my niece and her boyfriend.
Okay.
They left. I am now single, so I hung out for a little bit longer to see if maybe a potential suitor might show up.
Okay.
Nothing happened. I was ready to go home.
Already noticed the framing. He is not the property owner doing rounds. He is just a lonely guy who watched the Super Bowl and was about to head home. A regular man, an ordinary night. He just happened to have a gun.
I noticed there was a lot of activity going to and from the back door.
Okay.
As we have discussed in the past,
Yes.
correct?
Yes.
So I went out back to just see what was going on. As you know, I am armed. Nature of my business, my property.
All right.
There it is. The gun is a professional necessity. He's practically doing his civic duty just by walking outside. Not a man looking for a confrontation, a responsible business owner doing a walkthrough who just happened to encounter something. That's the version he's selling.
I went out back, and there was not one, this was not a drug dealer, I don't think, just a guy. And he had buddies with him, and there were cars, but he was in between two cars. There were people on either side, and I guess they were all together. I don't know. They hadn't come from inside the bar. I don't know where they came from. And he's pissing in the parking lot and on the building. And I said, man, can't you just go I'll be honest, can't you just go in the fucking bar and piss in the toilet? And we exchanged words. And as it progressed, he became more agitated and approached me. And I said, look, I own this. Stop. He continued to approach me. I said, I'm armed. It appeared as though he was reaching for something. The first shot went off this way. The second shot went off up in the air. To the best of my recollection.
To the best of his recollection. That phrase is going to do a tremendous amount of work over the course of this interrogation. Because in Brewer's version, this entire sequence, the approach, the threat, the gun, the shot, happens so instantaneously that the details just evaporated. Poof. He can give you the shape of what happened, the overall scope, as he'll soon put it, just not the parts that don't hold together under pressure. The detective asks him directly, was there any physical contact?
It was that fast.
So when the altercation happened, that you all came together, was there any contact with you on him? Did you grab him? Did he grab you? Was there any hand contact?
Not to my recollection.
Okay.
It happened so fast, but when somebody's coming at you that fast,
I got you.
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. He's already building the legal argument in real time. He doesn't need physical contact. He doesn't need to find a weapon. He needs the reasonable perception of a threat. And in Florida, understand your ground, he knows exactly what that standard requires. But notice what else he just did. He shut down the specifics the moment they got uncomfortable. The detective hasn't even pushed yet, and Brewer is already drawing the boundary. Which brings us to the next moment, because a few beats later, he makes that boundary explicit.
All right.
Now, if we're going to get into very minute particulars, that's what I'm going to ask for a lawyer.
Okay.
Because I'm telling you the overall scope of what happened.
The overall scope, not the specifics, the broad strokes. He'll give you the story, just not the parts that don't hold together. He's drawn the line deliberately, and what lives on the other side of that line is exactly what the surveillance cameras already captured. The detective doesn't push past it, and almost immediately, he pivots to the drinks.
You had gone to the bar earlier. What time do you think you got to the bar?
We watched the whole Super Bowl.
The whole Super Bowl? Okay. How many drinks you think you might have had?
Probably 3.
About 3? Was it drinks or beers? What were you
Beers.
drinking? Beers?
I don't
Okay.
remember.
You just drink beer? Okay.
3 beers over the course of an entire Super Bowl. He's presenting himself as a man in full command of his faculties. A sober, clear-eyed property owner who made a reasonable defensive decision in a frightening situation. The civil lawsuit later filed by the Hughes family will paint a very different picture of Brewer's state that night. But right now, in this room, he's the picture of measured sobriety. The detective walks him through the geography. Brewer picks up a pen and draws a map, the parking lot, the back door, the Jeep that's been parked there forever, where he was standing, where it ended. He's precise about the layout, less precise about the sequence. And then he says something that should make you sit forward.
Okay.
It was that fast.
Okay. All right.
And I'm going to maintain stand your ground all day long. I mean, it's my parking lot. He's coming at me. I mean, what I hope comes out of this, I understand your job. And I understand friends don't cross that line for your job. I think this is a case for a grand jury.
He doesn't hope it was a misunderstanding. He doesn't hope it goes away quietly. He hopes for a grand jury. He believes he knows the legal terrain. He knows the statute. He's thinking several moves ahead in a chess game he still believes he can win. He's wrong, but he doesn't know that yet. Then he asks for something that cuts through the entire room.
No, I understand that. You've always been up front with me with no problem, so we just put everything together, you know, and then we give it to them, and it'll go from there. And
So here's what I would ask. If you want to hold me, for whatever reason, give me 3 or 4 days. Here's why. I'm a one-man shop. I've got to pay estimated taxes. I'm the only one that can do it.
Okay.
I've got to be in my office. I don't care if you come and sit with me, just make sure I don't go anywhere.
Right.
But I've got to be able to do that.
He's been awake all night. He's just killed a 21-year-old in a parking lot. And right now, sitting in this interrogation room, his priority is quarterly tax filing. Not 3 days to grieve, not 3 days to process, 3 days to sort out the estimated payments. The detective tells him that's not a decision he can make. Brewer nods, gives him his attorney's name and number, and the conversation continues until it doesn't.
I would like to get in touch with my lawyer. I've asked 3 times and was denied the ability.
When did you ask for that?
When I was detained at the scene
Okay.
and when I was downstairs.
Okay. Who is your attorney?
Don Yates. I'm not saying I refuse to cooperate. I'm saying I would like to confer with counsel.
Sure. Okay. I am not sure where your phone is, but
I don't know.
After handing all things needed to prosecute him to the detectives, he then demands for a lawyer, something he should have done before saying anything.
to cover it all, take you out there, get that done, and we gotta do what we gotta do. Also,
But I've asked again to speak to my attorney.
okay, so that's fine, then I won't ask you anything else if you wanna talk to your attorney.
Well, for advice.
Okay, that's fine, if that's what, and that's fine, that's totally your right to do it. We're gonna go ahead and get you to the hospital, and once you get done with what you gotta do, we'll get you can give them a call. So we'll get it done. Right now, we're not gonna ask you anything else. We do have a warrant, for the blood, which is signed by a judge, so that'll be done.
do me a favor, Mr. Burr. Can you sign and date this for me? Just shows that obviously you're the person that drew that picture.
I don't have my glasses on.
You're fine. I can read you. You want the cheaters again?
Was it now the 11th?
Today's the 13th.
13.
13th?
Thank you. I will take that.
This could go.
Where does the gunshot residue show?
What's that?
Gunshot residue.
That right now is not showing anything.
It's negative.
On it, yeah. And it could happen. Sometimes these kids will show negative on it.
What Preston Brewer told detectives that night was a story, carefully structured, legally aware, built around the 2 words Florida law requires, reasonable belief. What the surveillance cameras recorded was something else entirely, and the 2 accounts were not even close. Let's go back to that footage, the footage from Brewer's own cameras, pointed at his own parking lot, running on his own property. Because here is what it shows, and here is what it absolutely does not show. It does not show an unarmed 21-year-old charging a man in a threatening manner. It does not show a confrontation that erupted instantaneously with no time to react. It does not show a man with no other option. What it shows is Brewer approaching Hughes, words exchanged, Brewer turning and walking away, and then, deliberately, consciously, with time between the thought and the action, turning back around, closing the distance, reaching for the weapon on his hip, drawing it, firing. That gap, the walk away, the pause, the turn back is everything. Because stand your ground in Florida requires three things. You must be somewhere you have a lawful right to be, you must reasonably believe you face imminent death or great bodily harm, and you must not have initiated or provoked the confrontation. The video establishes that Brewer disengaged, then chose to re-engage. He didn't stand his ground. He went looking for it. Monroe County Chief Assistant State Attorney Joseph Mansfield would later describe it at sentencing with surgical precision. Brewer initially walked away, but instead of continuing to disengage, he turned around, closed the distance, drew his weapon, and fired. One sentence. That's all it took to dismantle 3 years of stand-your-ground arguments.
Going to be the interaction between Mr. Brewer and the other three gentlemen that provoked the incident that exactly led up to the actual shooting. Their testimony, whether or not they testified truthfully.
Hair samples are totally irrelevant. Hair samples cannot pinpoint a date or a time when a substance was ingested.
At trial, the defense had one card left to play. Attorney Jerome Ballarotto told the jury that Garrett Hughes had a beer bottle in his hand, that it was intended as a weapon, that Brewer's fear was legitimate, that this wasn't a first-degree murder case. He acknowledged in his own closing argument that Garrett didn't deserve to die. Then kept arguing anyway. The prosecution's response was simple. They played the video. Assistant State Attorney Colleen Dunn walked that jury through the surveillance footage frame by frame. Garrett Hughes, she told them, was done. All he wanted was to walk away, and this defendant was not going to let that happen. He blocked him from leaving, he engaged him, he shot him, and he did it, she said, after time to reflect on what he was about to do. In Florida, that phrase, after time to reflect, is the legal definition of premeditation. It's not about hours or minutes. It's about the moment of choice, the moment Brewer turned around, the moment he decided to go back. One eyewitness cut through everything. A woman present in that parking lot, identified in court records as Melissa Roberts, watched the shooting from feet away. She told that jury what she saw in 5 words. That kid didn't stand a chance. The defense called no witnesses. After the prosecution rested, they put nobody on the stand. Not a single person to challenge the eyewitnesses, not a single expert to reframe the footage. 3 years of preparation, and they had nothing to say back to a video that already said everything. The jury deliberated. They came back with a verdict. Guilty first-degree murder, premeditation, intent, the whole thing. 36 days after the verdict, Lloyd Preston Brewer III appears in court for sentencing. He's 60 years old now. He's been held without bond since the night of the shooting. His own attorneys agreed to that in 2023. He walks in wearing a prison jumpsuit and handcuffs. The Hughes family and their supporters fill one entire side of that courtroom. They are wearing red. Key West High School red. Conch Pride red. Garrett's red. There are dozens of them, and they have been at every hearing, every motion, every procedural delay across 3 full years of continuances and legal maneuvering, sitting in those seats while their son and brother and friend stayed dead. They do not give victim impact statements. It is a deliberate choice. Prosecutor Colleen Dunn explains it directly to the court. The Hughes family chose not to give Preston Brewer their time or their emotion. He didn't deserve it then. He doesn't deserve it now. Brewer is offered the chance to speak. He says nothing. Judge Mark Jones addresses the courtroom before delivering the sentence. He speaks about what he hopes the moment means beyond these walls, that maybe something said here changes the way someone behaves in the future. He is not speaking only of Brewer. He is speaking to every person in that room, every person carrying, every person who has ever confused ownership with authority and a loaded gun with a right. Then he reads the sentence. You have been found guilty by a jury of your peers and adjudicated guilty of murder in the first degree. I hereby sentence you to spend the rest of your life in prison without the possibility of parole. Lloyd Preston Brewer III will die in prison. Under Florida law, first-degree murder with premeditation carries either death or life without parole. The state did not seek death, so life without parole it is. Mandatory, no discretion, no appeal to a parole board in 20 years, no second act. His attorneys have announced plans to appeal, raising objections to jury instructions and the language used around Brewer's supposed right to non-deadly force. That process will take years, and given the weight of the surveillance footage and the force of the eyewitness testimony, is unlikely to change the outcome. The Hughes family has also filed a wrongful death civil lawsuit against Brewer and the entities connected to the property. That case remains active. The financial reckoning is still unfolding on top of the criminal one. None of it undoes what happened in that parking lot. The footage doesn't unexist. The bullet doesn't come back. The stand your ground defense was a story Brewer told himself and then told a detective, and a jury of his peers watched the same video the detective had and decided, unanimously, that the story wasn't true. 2 months after Garrett died, a benefit concert was held for his family. More than 2,000 people showed up. His friend, local rapper Mike Stack, performed against a backdrop of a giant photograph of Garrett smiling down at the crowd. The concert raised more than $50,000 for a scholarship in his name. At the end of the night, Stack said he could feel his friend's hand on his shoulder the whole time. That's who Garrett Hughes was, a kid who made 2,000 people show up in grief, a kid who gave his time to other kids before anyone was asking him to, a kid this island loved back without hesitation. He deserved to turn 22. He deserved to keep coaching those kids. He deserved to come home that night. What was taken from him, and from everyone who wore red in that courtroom, was ordinary and irreplaceable and gone.